It is now time for the Let's Talk Weddings podcast. Here's your host, wedding DJ and MC of Buzzard Ball DJ Entertainment in Sacramento, California, Steve Buzzard.
Hello, everyone. Welcome in. It is time for Let's Talk Weddings, the podcast that talks about, yes, weddings. My name is Steve Buzzard, your host. I am a DJ, wedding DJ and MC with Buzzard Ball DJ Entertainment, located in Sacramento, California. Been doing it for well over 20 years, and I absolutely love doing weddings. In fact, when I talk to couples, that's the first thing I lead off with is, I love weddings. And so I'm here with the podcast to give you an inside look at the industry through the eyes of different vendors, okay? So you have different people that are part of an experience for a bride and groom or a couple that is getting married. And today we're talking to our second wedding coordinator, and it's Katie Deterding. That's right. She'll be the episode 6 guest. She is with Planned by KD Wedding and Events. You can find her at plannedbykd.com or her Instagram at plannedbykd, all right? And so we're going to dive into it. We're going to talk about how she got into the industry. We're going to talk about what she loves about being a wedding coordinator. And then the fun part, she'll talk about her first wedding, and then we'll break it down. What does it look like for Katie when she meets with her couples before the wedding, the day of the wedding, and after the wedding, and then we'll finish it out. It'll be a lot of fun. Oh yeah, in addition to marketing and pricing, which we do share because we believe in full transparency, and Katie speaks to that as well, but we will talk about trends that are going in and out. We'll talk about pet peeves, and we'll even share a couple of horror stories. That's right, they do happen in the wedding industry. So I'm very excited. Conversation coming your way. Once again, is Katie Deterding of Planned by KD Wedding and Events. All right, well, welcome in, everybody. Here we are. It is episode number 6 of Let's Talk Weddings, and I am proud, very honored to be joined by Katie Deterding. Katie, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing terrific, and I'm so excited to have you on. You are my second wedding coordinator that I've been able to have on, and I'm very excited to kind of dive into your world as seen through the lens of a wedding coordinator. And even though I've had one on before, the thing with me is any vendor that speaks upon what they are able to do, you definitely will have a kind of a slightly different lens. And I think that's the fun part of this podcast. So let's start by talking about your company. Lay out for us your company and what it's all about.
So Planned by Katie happened during COVID because I wanted to be the person I needed during my wedding planning process. Yeah. There are so many different planners, coordinators, all this help in the industry, but there was really nothing for the bride who wanted to do it herself and needed that guidance. The bride who needed help kind of putting all the pieces together, but wanted, help, but not to be told what to do.
I love that. And this is very interesting because if you heard that correctly, she started after COVID, okay? And that's a very important piece because I think it really changed the wedding industry. And that's why I think Katie's story is so compelling, is because out of a pandemic, and by the way, she got married in 2022. So she got married back in June. In fact, June 4th, you're like, Steve, how do you actually know that? Well, I know that because I was her DJ. That's right. Her and Matt getting married at Barnes of Second Wind, a beautiful ceremony. I'm curious about, you got into it after the pandemic, got married in 2022. Talk to me about like what it was before you got married and then you actually got married, how it may have changed your perspective once you're in the spot of being the bride.
Of course. Well, you heard in your episode with Connor and Emma about the horror story about a photographer. So that was my wedding. We decided to elope during COVID, and we, just my husband and I in the church. Family, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry. We never told anybody. So we hired a photographer, and it was not a great experience. And we talked about this and said, what do we do? How do we teach people how to hire vendors, how to do your due diligence? Because I totally thought I was great and I knew exactly what to do. And this still happened to me. So after we eloped, we kind of dug deep, and my husband was like, you need to do this so you can teach others how to figure this out and navigate. And things were so different, as you know, during COVID. You were meeting vendors online. There was never this face-to-face interaction. So we pivoted and did that. I was so lucky to find amazing vendors for my wedding. But in that, we had our caterer cancel 4 days before our wedding.
Wow.
So again, I needed to find that person to help me. I had a lovely coordinator who absolutely helped the best she could. But 4 days out, what do? You need to have a problem solver.
Yeah.
So where my venue was, there are actually 3 different venues right on that street. I called them. Who's your caterer for this day? Okay, great. What are they serving? Can they double it? We have another wedding. And that problem solving led me to do what I do now.
Yeah, see, and I like it where you were at because, again, you got into it after the pandemic. So you had already been kind of in the space to be able to probably ask the questions you just said right there. I don't think you probably would have known that had you not gotten into the space. So being able to pivot, which by the way was a huge buzzword during the pandemic, and we all became really good at it. Talk to me about kind of, that evolution of you coming into the space. Now, I know you had mentioned to me before we jumped on the podcast that you had actually come in kind of under the wing of somebody else. So you were able to kind of see someone else and kind of get a feel for you. And then, as you said, your husband said, hey, after the episode that you had with your wedding, it's like, hey, let's do this on your own. And that's where you are at now. Take me at those beginning stages of what got you into the space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was working under another planning company and I absolutely loved it. I thrive in finding, the solutions to situations and that chaos. But I wanted more. I wanted more than just showing up the day of, being handed a timeline and saying, go for it. Which is why my husband was like, you need to go for it. Starting a business is so scary. You don't know what's going to happen. And I started in February of 2023, officially on my own. And 2023 was absolutely amazing with 17 weddings.
Okay, so did you hear that, people? She launches on her own 17 weddings. And for a coordinator, especially out of the chute, that is better than good. That's like great. And so everybody out there, we're going to find out what is your special sauce, but leading to 17, how did that happen?
I think it was honesty. Telling my couples, hey, you need they call it day of coordinator. We don't come in the day of, right? We're there the day of, but we're coming in 4 to 6 weeks before. And giving them honest feedback. No, your idea of saving money, having all of your guests stand for the ceremony, that's not a good idea. I promise to always be honest with my couples, and I feel that has really helped me because they know when they ask me a question, I'm not there to get more money. I'm not there to, please grandma and grandpa. I'm there to do what's best for them, with them in mind.
And I love that because I think it does start with a couple. There are so many factors that go into a wedding, right? Layers upon layers. But when you really boil it down, it's the couple. And that's one line I always use. We're talking about a whole bunch of different things with emceeing and music. And I know I told you the same thing. My line is this: ultimately, no matter what, this day is about you. And however you want that to look, that is what we're going to strive for. I imagine you probably have that same mantra when you talk to your couples.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it truly is an experience. So Plan by KD started in February of 2023. You're coming out of getting married. You're launching it. The obvious thing is, like, what are your strengths? You talked about honesty, but fill me in on some other things that sets you apart as being the wedding coordinator you are.
One of the things that sets me apart is the way I approach it with my couples. I am there to hold their hands, but not exactly tell them what to do, because in this technology day and age, couples want to do that research.
Yeah.
They want to go on Pinterest and TikTok and YouTube and all the things. They want to find out for themselves, but then they also kind of need that checks and balances that isn't their mother.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, they're hearing from their mom, well, I did it this way in the 80s, and they don't want to hear that. So they want someone to help them, but also, kind of be that sounding board. My couples, when they sign with me, we do a meeting to find out where they're at. What do they need help with? Okay, great. You need help with these vendors. I'm going to help you out. If you need, a to-do list, let's get it going.
Mm-hmm.
And customizing it towards them.
And there's the key word, customizing it towards them, right? You're going to have all the resources in terms of vendors, like you said, to-do lists, things that you've seen, things that you can help them with. I think that's another big thing as a vendor, is realizing that you can fill the gap no matter where they are on the spectrum. So from a music perspective, I'll tell people, listen, you can tell me as little as you want. You can mention that you like country and 90s rap, and I can fill in the gaps. Or you can give me a playlist for every part of your wedding. I imagine it's probably the same way with you. You've seen it all on one end of the spectrum to the other, and you can fill everything else in between.
Absolutely. I've gotten the pleasure to plan so many different cultural weddings that I never thought people would trust me to do. I've gotten to do, the Catholic, the Jewish synagogue, to these Indian Muslim traditions that aren't, typical cookie cutter, right? And mixing these traditions. So it's been really nice to sit with my couples and learn their traditions and find out, what do they really want from this experience and how can I help them?
And by the way, are you a solo op or do you have a team?
So I'm a solo op, but
Okay.
I work with 3 other wonderful planners that we all kind of assist for each other.
I like that. So you built a team, but you guys are all independent. Is that correct in saying
Absolutely.
that?
Absolutely. Nobody can do it alone, right?
Mhm.
Especially when your guest counts are over 200. It's just too much. But having other planners who you trust and can help. I do have one full-time assistant. Her name is Maddie, and she's absolutely lovely. And she really is the backbone the day of, because while I'm talking to vendors and doing all these things, she's helping grandma find her seat.
Yeah.
And that's
you need
really
that
what we need.
person or people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, also my husband is wonderful. He packs the car for every event, and I can't tell you how much of a help that is.
Okay, but tell me about that team part, because I'm curious. Does that mean when you host a wedding, do any of those 2 or 3 help on the day of, or is it more leading up to the day of the wedding, and vice versa? Maybe you help them out as well.
Absolutely. So they'll come in the day of, and help me, and same with them. They'll call me and say, "Hey, Katie, I have a wedding on this date. What is that weekend look like for you?"
Wow.
No, I'm absolutely free. How can I help you? Hey, I need an assistant from this time to this time. Here's the timeline.
Okay, and I am curious, like, do you pay each other like for their time, or is it more of we're a partnership?
We do pay each other.
Okay, that's great. I love this concept because it looks a lot different from the DJ perspective.
Yeah.
Mine is more, I have 2 reliable DJs that if I am booked, I'm going to refer them to those 2. But we obviously don't work together, but we help each other working independently. So it's a little bit similar, but I like your model better because you can actually help each other out on day of weddings, which is the most crucial thing, right? And we're going to get into that when we break it down, like what you do before, what you do during the day of the wedding, and then, of course, after the wedding. So it's like you've got a team within a team.
Absolutely.
I love it. So honesty, being able to kind of like break things down. Anything else you want to add to that list as far as your strengths?
I think being open and like willing to take step in from my clients. I have, like I said, multicultural weddings.
Yep.
I just recently had a Muslim wedding, and they said we can't find somebody in our community that knows how to do what you do. Will you sit down and have dinner with us and we can teach you our traditions? Absolutely.
Wow.
So we sat down, we went to like a Mediterranean restaurant and we had dinner and they broke down the different traditions
Nice.
and what that means to them. So not only was I, day of, I'm not going through the motions, I understood this is what this ritual, this is what this prayer, all of those things mean.
And by the way, you've got a kind of a funny story that you did share with me that about the money on the ground, and you're scooping it up, scooping it up. It turns out they have a tradition where the money is actually for the DJ. Well, it turns out the DJ didn't even help Katie pick up the money. But you know what? Katie is there to serve her couple in any way possible.
Absolutely. I thought this was an Indian wedding, and they're throwing money and they're having a wonderful time. And I was like, oh my gosh, how nice for the couple. They're about to go on their honeymoon. They're going to get to spend this money. They did a champagne pour. So at the end of the night, I spent hours, I was there till 4 a.m., scraping dollar bills off the floor. And I presented it to my couple, very happy that I did this for them. And they handed it to the DJ and said, thank you for your time.
Oh man, the sacrifice of a wedding coordinator. Once again, everybody's Katie Deterding. This is Let's Talk Weddings. My name is Steve Buzzard. Episode number 6. We're very excited to launch this journey. Again, my inspiration is a man named Matt Campbell, and Matt Campbell has a podcast in which he does kind of the same thing, just talks to different vendors. In fact, his latest guest was a couple that had gone to like 15 weddings, so he kind of wanted to get a feel, and I got to be a guest on his show. So I'm just kind of doing the same thing here, and I'm starting locally, and Katie is local, and I'm very excited for her because she is kind of a newbie, right? She started in 2023, but I love how you got into the space. So you talked about that first wedding, and you mentioned being scared of starting your business.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the emotions that went into officially starting your business, which then landed what would be that first wedding, and what do you remember from that first wedding?
So going into it, I was so nervous because you have the, what if I fail?
Right.
What if I fail? And I remember talking to my mom about it, and she goes, but what if you succeed? What does that look like? What if you succeed? And I was so scared. I, hid my Instagram from my friends and my family and stuff. And then one day a coworker said, look what I saw on my suggested people. What a cool thing you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's all it took. I then didn't feel like people were judging me. What if she fails?
Yep.
And that's all it took.
Well, and the thing is, Katie, and you know this, especially now, you're a very confident person. Like even as a bride, right, being able to work with you, you were very confident. You had a very good feel of how you wanted the day to lay out. I think a lot of that was helped out by the fact that you did get into the space about a year or so before. But still, I can detect a confident bride. It led to such a great day. So you have it there. But you know what? I think you speak to something that is within each and every one of us, especially as an entrepreneur trying to start a new business, right? It's nice when you work for someone, but you don't have the freedom that you have when you have your own business. And when you get that freedom and you overcome the fear, I would imagine you're feeling pretty good now.
Yeah. It's been absolutely wonderful. It's taken me to do things that I never thought would be possible. One of, the things once I started my company was to get with other vendors and build that community. Everything seems so competitive, but when you break it down, we just all want the same things.
Absolutely.
I've been a part of a couple of styled shoots that I've planned. My first one involved 30 vendors, bringing them all together to launch a brand new venue. And it was absolutely wonderful getting to know everybody. Which kind of slingshotted me into my next one that I just recently did with Ultraviolet Bridal Co., where we had 15 bridal models of all different shapes, sizes, ages, to really show diversity in the bridal industry, because it's so hard when you're looking at all these pages and you don't see someone that looks like you.
Yeah. And you know what, folks? right now. Now, listen, we're going to put all the information in the show notes, but if you go to her website, which, by the way, she's putting final touches on it, but the opening picture is the absolute best, and it's speaking to what she's talking about right now. It's planbykd.com, and you will see that photo that Katie is talking about, and you're in it. So, I mean, it's so cool to be a part of that. Like, yeah, you were a bride too, and you're right. It really did show kind of the span of different brides, because not all brides look like, I guess, whatever the stigma would be to what we think a bride looks like. It comes in all shapes and sizes, and we know that there are weddings of so many different kinds. You mentioned the cultural, there's all of that going on. And so that picture, I think, is very strong. And even better is I love the tagline where it says, every detail, every dream, every couple. So I think you really put it together very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job. Okay. So Katie, I should ask you, what do you love about your job? You've talked about so much of getting into this business, overcoming the fear, 17 weddings in your very first year as a businesswoman. What is it that you love about it?
I love like I said, in that tagline, the detail, every detail. I love being able to help couples with that. I'm very detail oriented and also sentimental. So sometimes my couples ask me, I don't know what to do for a gift for mom or dad, right? And I get to help them and learn, okay, who is mom? What does she like? How can we add these details, the details in our memory tables, the things like that, to then, watch it show up on the wedding day.
Right. And what about that first wedding? We kind of skipped over that. Do you remember your wedding?
I remember my first wedding as an assistant and as a lead.
Wait, say that again?
I remember both of my first weddings. As an assistant, working for someone else, it was, absolute chaos. And then a groomsman tapped me on the shoulder and said, I have 300 Taco Bell tacos. I said, excuse me? What? And he goes, can you display these? We're hungry. And that was their late night snack. Okay. Yeah.
And, hey.
It's really hard to make a pretty display out of those, but sure tried. And watching the happiness of a dance floor, and they were getting down, they were having fun. Just leave. Because there's tacos.
Something about the tacos took it to another level, right?
It took it to another level. And it was okay, this simple thing really changed the feel, the energy, right?
Yep.
And so taking that into all of my weddings, how can one simple thing help the couple make or break their night? Nice. What are those little details?
Oh, I love that. And then on your own, what was that like? Can you kind of tell? You don't have to tell us who the couple was, but any details that you can share?
Yeah, it was in Napa. So, you're driving there for the first time on your own, and you have a long drive to think about it, right? Okay, I've prepared this. I've done all the timelines. I've done all of the everything, right? And you get there, and you walk into this room, this blank room, and it's all yours, right? It is your job to now transform it. And it was such a cool feeling. I remember thinking, okay, well, I need all this stuff for my social media. I'm going to take all these pictures and all this stuff. I don't think I ever took my phone out that night. Because I was so just immersed in what was going on.
And I think that's a good thing. I mean, that speaks to the passion that you have for doing what you're doing. Social media is definitely an aspect of it, but that's something you're going to build. And obviously you now have a presence and, a great bridge, because if you go into Instagram, it's Planned by KD and it's all together. It's all lowercase. You can find her there. She's got some great posts on there. So we've given you the website. We've given you the Instagram. Now let's kind of talk about marketing and pricing. Something very important, because, I always think about who are the people that are going to listen to this podcast or watch this on YouTube. And it comes to me with two categories. It's going to be other vendors, right? And it's going to be couples that are trying to do that research of what something looks like. So speak to me about marketing, how that looked for you when you got into the space and what it looks for you, the way it looks for you right now.
So for marketing, I don't use any of the big platforms.
Okay.
I use social media.
Mm.
Because brides right now, that's how they're finding me.
Yeah.
When I created this, my mom was like, you have to have a website. You have to do all these things. And I said, Mom, I am doing this for brides who are, 20 to 30, right? They're not looking in the phone book. They're not looking in magazines. They're looking on social media. My website, when I first made it, I said, this is to please the moms, right? The person who's writing the check.
That is a great point because I'm a lot older, right? So the old school method would be to have the website in place. I feel like you have to have a landing spot. But what you said about where young people are now, there is no doubt that there's the shift, right? And yet the social media is the driving force. And you can say, well, yeah, Steve, it worked for me. I had 17 weddings in 2023 because it's going to be a combination of the social media and I would imagine word of mouth.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so lucky that this year I get to have weddings of bridesmaids from last year.
Nice.
Which is really cool. Yeah.
A repeat customer, and that's always the best. And that's what's going to keep you busy for as long as you want to be a wedding coordinator. Okay, so you spoke to marketing. Now you do have a website, but it looks like you kind of flipped things, right? You went social media strong, but realized that you did probably need a website. That's going to be more for mom and dad, which totally makes sense so that they can see pricing and other things about you that would look different for them as it would to the couple who would just be easy to talk to you or find out what they need to through social media. So then that would lead into pricing. And this is always a big thing on what do you show? Do you show? What are your feelings on that in terms of pricing? And I know it looks different for a coordinator as it would for a DJ. Can you speak to that?
So I'm very upfront and honest about my pricing because I've been a bride and I understand how difficult it is. Everyone wants to reel you in. They want to have that face-to-face conversation. But as a bride, it's like, how many of these am I going to sit through to find out how much it costs? Can I afford it? All of these things. So when you go to my page and you go to my services, you read what it is, and there's the price.
There it is. In fact, I'm going to do it right now. Let's see. We go to services. I'm on the website right now, and boom, there we. Oh wow, there we go. And I like how you use the verbiage. Beginning at. Okay, so just the day of, you say beginning at 1,400, partial planning beginning at 2,500, and then full planning beginning at 6,200. And you know what? And I think that little space right there is like so huge, and I wish more vendors would do, because as long as you have a gauge, then you can move forward. My guess is I think couples do not like it when vendors hide their prices.
And I think there's a time and a place for it.
Okay.
For especially like photo and video, right?
Okay, yep.
Equipment,
I think that's different. Yep.
Editing, things like that, right? They really need to have that conversation. But a lot of times before couples even come to me, they already know.
Yeah.
I want someone for just the day.
Mm-hmm.
I need full planning. How can you help me?
Yeah. And that's great too. I love too that you have the options, right? And I remember Hannah Baker, when I spoke to her, it was the same thing. It was like, here are the options we can give you, because what we have to realize as vendors is that people are coming to you with different wants and needs.
Absolutely.
So if you only have one lane, that's going to be kind of tough. But if you can offer options, of which you have 3 of them, I think that's really going to help couples be able to say yes to you.
Absolutely. And being able to do custom packages. I do many Indian weddings that are multi-day events.
That's a good point. That's right. Yeah, you got ones. And that's the other thing from a wedding coordinator. It's not like me. I show up as a DJ. Yes, there's planning that takes place. But in terms of being physically there, it's the day of the wedding. Okay, I don't usually go to any rehearsals or anything. I always tell couples, I'm like, listen, I'll usually know the venue. If I don't know the venue, take some video for me. I'm very transparent about that, because I think a lot of things you can work out pretty easily without me having to be there, if that makes sense. But for a wedding coordinator, it's a much different ball game. You're there quite a bit.
Absolutely. I'm there. One of my jobs is communicating with the DJ prior to it. Hey, what do you need? What do you need from me? Do you need tables? Do you need, how long is your extension cord? Do we need to find another one? Does the venue provide it? Where's, all of these different aspects?
Right. And you can see that, and like from a DJ standpoint, that's the type of wedding coordinator I love. And there's a lot of great ones in this area. We have talked about partnering up. When we have our first wedding, we'll have the official partnership for sure. But that's why I wanted to bring you on the show and be able to talk about your business, because I love how you come into it. I love what you have to deliver, and I love how you just speak to being a wedding coordinator. So, kudos to you. Way to go. Yeah. All right, so with that, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes. The second half of these types of segments is, what does an actual wedding day look like? Katie's kind of alluded to some things, but I'll have her take just a wedding that she does and break it down for us. So again, before, day of, and after, and then we'll have some final thoughts, maybe a couple of horror stories that we'll share with you, because there are ones, and Katie has a few to share. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this. This is Let's Talk Weddings. Glad you could be with us.
Now back to Let's Talk Weddings, where wedding dreams meet industry experts. This is your backstage pass to the world of wedding vendors. Here is your host, Steve Buzzard.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is Katie Deterding who is joining us for episode 6 of Let's Talk Weddings, planned by Katie.com. Same name on Instagram. Those are the two ways really to get to her. But it was cool. We broke down kind of what the website and social media brings to Katie, amongst other things. And that's why I love doing this show, because we really can learn some things. Even as I sit here, as many weddings as I've done, I can always pick up on something new. And Katie has provided some great information. So what I'm wondering is, we're going to take a wedding that you've done, one of the 17 in 2023, and the number of weddings you've done here in this current year, 2024. Talk to me about when you first make contact with a couple and how that looks leading up to the day of the wedding.
So after the couple is, contracted with me, we sit down and I find out, what have you done so far? If they're just the day of coordination, we're going to find out, what have you done? What do you still need? Do you still need, whatever vendor that is? A lot of times they'll need one or two. And I get to provide them with my preferred vendors list. And I like to tell my couples, the people on here are the people I would trust myself.
Yeah. I've
worked with them. I don't let anyone pay to get on my list. I know that's a big thing in the industry.
Yeah.
Nope. Every single
no
vendor on my list I've worked with, yep. I would let my brother, my sister, my best friend hire. Right? I want to make sure that my couples have that same, transparency. So they're getting that. My couples are also getting kind of a worksheet of what to do and when. There's, we're planning this wonderful event. Let's make it legal now, right?
Yeah.
Because that's forgotten quite a bit, right? And people need guidance on how to do that. Especially, I have couples, California, especially the Auburn area, has become kind of a destination wedding place. Which is, you would never think of it, right? So I've had couples coming from Nevada, Oregon, one from Arizona getting married up there. So what does that look like? What do they need to get done to be able to make this legal up here, right? Do they need to come get their stuff, their legal paperwork done here, there? What are they doing? So we have that conversation, and then we map it out. If they're partial planning or full planning, we're planning their monthly meetings. And they're getting a target of what they need to get done for every meeting. And,
So I'm interested with that, the communication, because obviously couples are going to come to you at different times, right? Could be 2 years out, year and a half, a year, 6 months, could be a month or so. So typically, how many Zoom meetings, right? Or face-to-face meetings, we'll call it that, do you have with a couple? Let's say that, books you a year out.
We're having one a month.
Wow. Nice. Okay.
Because that's what they booked me for.
Right.
They need that. They don't need it. They want that help, right? So we're having that, but they're also, they can text me. Yeah. I had actually a bride today send me a picture. She was at the store and she goes, "Do you think these vases match?" Because I've already seen everything else that we've rented and contracted for, right? So when I respond, they did not match. But they're having that honest feedback, right? Hey, yeah. This doesn't work, but let's try looking for something of this style. Yeah. Right? They're able, between our meetings, to have that conversation. Same with our just the day. Some brides, they're planning me a year out. Or some, I've done it in as little as 11 days.
Wow.
I recently had a bride. She said, "I'm done. I'm overwhelmed. I'm fighting with my mom. Help me."
Is this the one 11 days out?
It was 11 days out.
Wow. So that's an important point, because we shared a stat, and I think it's like 27% of couples actually hire a wedding coordinator. And I was shocked at that number, right? Because you got couples that are obviously trying to save money, and I get that. But to me, the wedding coordinator, obviously the venue, I guess you could kind of change that up, a professional DJ, right? And a photographer, I guess you can, there's some things you can kind of shave off. But the wedding coordinator, to me, I think if you want peace of mind for a great day, you hire a wedding coordinator.
And it's difficult because a lot of brides don't know this, right? This is, in this industry, we really don't have repeat customers, right? They're getting married once.
Right.
Their brother, their sister, their best friend might come to us, but they're getting married once. And they don't know. And a lot of venues market themselves to have a day of coordinator.
Right. Yes.
And
yep.
That person is there for the venue. They're absolutely wonderful. And I get so excited when I see that on my, agenda for that couple. But they're there for the venue.
It's different. Yes. And hopefully people can kind of see what you're trying to say through your words.
Yeah, that is not eloquent at all.
But it makes sense. It is no shade toward the venue coordinator. Yes, they serve a purpose, but it's almost on a basic level than it would be with a wedding coordinator like yourself, who is fully immersed in all the details of the complete wedding.
One thing I like to tell my couples, it's like going on an airplane on vacation.
Okay,
you're sitting in coach, you're going to get there, right? But you're sitting in first class, you're going to get there, you're going to be comfortable, you might take a really nice nap, feel refreshed. Either way, you're both getting there, right? You're both going to get married. But what is the experience that you want?
I love the analogy. That's a great analogy. First class with Katie. Yeah. All right, cool. So communication, I would imagine too, I've always wondered with wedding coordinators is the rental side, right? How much do you have that's your own? And I imagine a large majority of it you're outsourcing. That's got to be crazy in itself, trying to organize that.
Yes. So I do have quite a big selection.
Okay.
I've taken over the garage. My husband's not thrilled, but he's supportive. But there are so many wonderful rental companies in this industry, especially in the Sacramento, Carmichael area alone. There's just so many.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to work with them, especially because I have a relationship with them. I can call them up, "Hey, I have this wedding. These are the rentals we need. How can we work together?" A lot of times I'm right here, I'm picking them up.
Perfect.
Right?
Okay.
Because
you're bringing a lot of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So does that mean stuff the car? Is that a trailer? How do you do that?
Yes. All of the
yes to both. Stuff in the car, maybe a trailer.
I mentioned before that my husband packs the car for me.
Yeah.
And that is because the one time I tried to do it, it didn't all fit in there. And he's like, "That would have fit. Come on, let's take it out and start over."
Right.
So
He has that gift. He has that gift.
he absolutely does. And it's one way that he gets to help me in this process and kind of see at the end of the day when I'm like, oh, those vases were so, hard to deal with or whatever in the wind. He's like, yeah, I know, I saw them, and he gets to be a part of what I love and what I do. He sometimes will come assist me if it's a lot of manual labor. So, it's absolutely a team, but we're getting it all there. We're, if we're not bringing it, we're working and coordinating whoever is bringing it. A lot of times our couples are doing a lot of DIY stuff.
Okay.
So my couples receive, I ask them, are you doing any DIY centerpieces, XYZ? Yes. Okay, well, here you go. Here's this sheet that I'm going to give to you. That's going to make your day a lot easier, right? Because they might go and get, like candlesticks, right, from IKEA. Well, they have tags on them. So, I can say, hey, you got to cut those off before. So the day of, I'm not tied up doing that. Because you can do that the week before watching TV, or when, Aunt Sally is bugging you. How can I help with your wedding? How can I help? You can do this.
Cut these tags off.
Yeah, and I tell my couples this because a lot of times they'll ask me that. Yeah. Everyone's asking how they can help, and I don't know.
Yeah, because it's a lot. And that's the thing. It goes back to what you were saying. They don't know what they don't know. And so you're trying to guide them as you go along. Things obviously get compressed down to the last week. You may have a rehearsal dinner that you're a part of, the rehearsal. Let's get to that day of the wedding. Let's say a typical wedding, usually a 4 o'clock start, 10 o'clock finish. If that's your wedding, when are you getting up? When are you heading? Take me through the day of wedding for yourself.
So, day of wedding, I am the first vendor there and I'm the last to leave. Depending on when that venue lets me in, that's when I'm getting there. It's pretty typical for it to be 10 a.m. It's a pretty standard time across the board.
Okay, that's good to know.
I'm getting up, packing the car with my husband, kind of having that slow morning, because as soon as 10 a.m., 9:30 hits, I'm on the road, right? I'm getting there. I introduce myself to venue, couple, bridesmaids. If I haven't met them before the day of, typically, we're having that rehearsal the night before. And then we hit the ground running that day of. And I start with the way that guests arrive. Getting it done in that order. So,
okay, that's good. I was going to lead into that. What is your order that you go in? I like this.
So a lot of times before they get to the ceremony, there's a welcome table or the gift table or this or that. So I'm starting with that before I go to the ceremony. I'm doing it in order of the day, as well as, if I have an assistant, I'm able to delegate, hey, you're in charge of this or that. And that way, things like the reception that, placing name cards or, turning wine glasses up are done, we can do during cocktail hour.
Right. Yep.
My biggest job is a timeline, making sure everything's on time.
Yeah, the timeline's huge, right? And as we know, and it's said in the industry, no ceremony starts on time, right? But I know as a wedding coordinator, you really try to do your due diligence to be as close to that as possible. What we know with weddings is things come up, okay? They just happen. So the ability to pivot, or if something takes up a lot of time, let's say you start 15 or 20 minutes later than the start time, that you're going to make it up somewhere along the line. These are things you and I know, but the guests have no idea, right? They're just kind of rolling with what's going on.
Absolutely. And having that great relationship with the DJ is so key, because when you're working and you're like, okay, we need to make up time, just being able to give the DJ that look.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's go time. Let's do this.
Well, and then speak to the teamwork aspect, because that's one thing I always bring up that I feel is a strength of mine, is the ability to work with other vendors, right? You talked about the no competition thing. We are all
No.
in here to do the same thing. There's plenty of weddings for everybody. But it is ultra important that if you're in a wedding with other vendors serving a couple, you do have to be on the same page.
Oh, absolutely. I've heard the wedding planner or coordinator be talked about as like the coach for a team.
Yes.
With the other vendors, bar, DJ, catering, kind of being the players. One thing, I don't see it that way. A good leader can't do their job unless they're in there working. Right. I'm not going to be like, hey, do your job, and then sit down and watch you do it. No, I'm going to be there. If catering needs help, I'm there. If whatever DJ needs to do, a lot of times our DJs are emceeing, and I notice, oh my gosh, is he okay? Let me grab him some water, because they're talking so much. You having to be a team player for that team.
Right.
Because no one else is going to be there to do that.
Yes, and that's the thing. I think you have to realize, like, the wedding coordinator is probably that person that Katie's describing. But as vendors, I know for myself, if something happens with another vendor, we don't just sit there and go, well, hopefully it'll work out. You step in, because ultimately you are trying to serve the bride and groom and make sure that their experience is whole. And knowing that things happen, and they do, right? You just have to be ready for that. So I love how you speak to that. So, into the wedding, obviously couple's going to be very happy, right? And they whisk away, whether it be, we do sparkler exits or they get in a nice car and they drive away. They may or may not go on a honeymoon, but the evening is over. You said you're the last person. A lot of people wonder what happens after the wedding, right? Do you just say, that's it? Not for us vendors that care so much about our couples, right, Katie?
Nope, not at all. Yeah. So my couples aren't with me until the end of that night, right? I'm hoping there's so much to do after that wedding. Are they changing their name? Do they need help with that? Because there's nobody there to guide them to do that. You can look online and, okay, yeah, I have to go to Social Security, DMV. But having someone to ask the questions to, you can't do Social Security and DMV in the same day in California. So fun fact.
You guys know that? Did anybody know that? I mean, I'm just asking around, Katie does.
So giving them, here's your next steps, changing your name, doing this. Here's how, if they've done their registry through one of the big platforms, the Knot, Amazon, whatever that looks like. Here's a guide on how to help you for your thank you notes. It's a lost art in this day and age, but couples really want to do that. They just need help.
Okay, cool. And then I am curious, typically, and it's pretty standard, couples tip? You get tips, yeah?
I've only been tipped once.
Okay. And I think that's interesting because I think it depends on the vendor. The wedding coordinator, just so you know, in terms of who is getting paid the most based on if they're doing if it's a full deal, it's the most money, no doubt about it. And as a DJ, it's probably half, maybe 2/3 of that, depending on what the hours are. So, a DJ, possibly caterers, yeah, we get tipped here and there. But I imagine because it's all inclusive that that would make sense. But I am curious because I think honesty and transparency
of course.
This is all about, right? Like you said, you're honest and upfront, and that's why I knew I could ask you that question. So let's talk about trends of weddings. Here we are in 2024. I'm curious about what's in and what's out. Let's start with the in stuff that you are seeing a little bit more that maybe breaks away from what traditional weddings would be.
Absolutely. One of the new in things are wedding content creators.
Yes.
In our day and age, we love some instant gratification, right? We don't want to wait a month for the wedding photos, videos. Wedding content creators are doing it on their iPhone. This isn't the professional grade we're paying thousands of dollars for. This is, they want someone to hold their phone, take the pictures, the behind the scenes. And that's something that I'm seeing with almost all of my weddings now. It's a little controversial. People feel like, I'm hiring this wedding photographer and videographer, do I need this? Or the photographers are like, are they stepping on my toes?
Right. So here's the thing. I think it's separate. I really do believe it is separate because I just met what you're talking about for the first time at one of the weddings I did a few months ago. And I was like, this is brilliant. And I talked to the girl and I was like, this is incredible because it offers something completely different.
Well, Steve, I think you're kind of the person who pioneered this. You know,
Let's go.
you were the first, you send photos to the couple that next day.
Yep.
And that's all, after my wedding, that's all I had. You know,
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because that is a part that I do, and it's based on that. I think that's why I was so excited to see a person that was professionally doing it, because I'm like, okay, this is exactly why I tell couples, hey, I'm going to take a few videos and photos and everything. They're going to be on my iPhone. They won't be a professional quality, but guess what? I'm going to give them to you either the night of or the day after, and you'll be able to enjoy them while you wait for your photos. Exactly what you described.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'll take the pioneer part. I'll take it.
I love it.
Let's go. Okay, so content creators. Anything else?
There's new trends, more color coming into this. It's not typically people have wedding colors and that's 2 colors.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm seeing so many more. There's 5 or 6 colors.
A little variety on the coloring.
Variety. There's there's odes to tradition, but people aren't sticking to tradition in the normal sense anymore.
I agree.
Couples are really making it their own.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm seeing a lot of brides pay homage to tradition by wearing, their mother's wedding dress as the reception dress or the night before. They're wearing it, they're styling it different, they're getting it altered, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So just fun new things that couples are doing, which is
I like
really
that.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, so stuff going out. What do you see going out? We talk about the tradition, but you can see things are kind of morphing. What do you see as a wedding coordinator?
So now I've done 30 weddings, right?
Okay.
I've had 1 garter toss.
Yep. I'm with you. I'm with you on the garter toss. They're still doing the bouquet toss, but what I think people have figured out with the garter toss is because the way it's done, usually, these weddings are family friendly, right? So when you got little kids standing right by the bride and they're going to get in there and see, right? And they're going, wait, why is he going? You're just like, oh yeah, this is, how do you explain this one? So yeah, the garter toss is definitely one that's kind of going out.
I'm seeing bouquet tosses go out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really wonderful flower preservation companies now. So brides are opting to keep their bouquet.
Okay.
And get their flowers preserved. Or they are giving that bouquet to their mom.
Oh, okay. I like that.
As a thank you,
Mm-hmm.
The dad gets to walk the daughter down the aisle, but mom doesn't really get that big moment, that thank you. So I've seen it quite a few times where the bride, instead of doing the bouquet toss, the DJ will make an announcement. She's going to give this bouquet to her mom, to thank her for supporting her in this,
See, and I love little special touches like that I call kind of outside the box ideas, right? And if it becomes a trend, it becomes a trend. But another way to honor someone else in the family, because that's a good point. You think of the father-daughter and the mother kind of gets left out, right?
Yeah.
What's up with that, right?
Absolutely.
And so from a DJ side, like I'm having more mother-daughter dances. So there'll be a father-daughter dance, but there'll also be a mother-daughter dance. So that's a good one right there. Pet peeves. You can go light or heavy on this one, but pet peeves that you see at a wedding where you're like, oh my gosh, or, does there anything that, I don't want to say irritates you, but you just go, you kind of roll your eyes a little bit and I don't know.
Grandma with her iPad trying to take photos.
The fact that you were ready with that answer, kudos to you. Kudos to you. The big iPad with the big camera. That's a good one.
And then groomsmen who fight me on trying to take away their sunglasses. So before they go down the aisle,
yep,
I am taking your keys and your phone and your sunglasses. There is absolutely no reason you need it during that 15-minute ceremony.
Got it.
And they will give you their keys. They will give you their phone.
But not their
For some reason, the sunglasses. I'm like, that's the least useful thing right now.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I love that. Grandma's iPad and the groomsmen's sunglasses. Very, very good. And we will finish out what has been an incredible conversation with, I know you have a couple of horror stories. And these blow me away. Like when you told me some of these, I was like, man, it's a shame that this happens, but it does. It's out there. You mentioned with your wedding, like you had an issue with a photographer just on the photos you were trying to take with as part of your elopement, and it happens, and we have to kind of recognize that, and that's why people like yourself, myself, are in the industry so that we don't have those horror stories. But of course, they are kind of fun to listen to after the fact.
Of course, after the fact. Well, going back to what you said about our elopement photographer. One thing I do for my couples, because of my experience, I don't care what level of service you've hired me for. I don't even care if you're my client or not, okay? If you're somebody who's getting married and you need help looking over a contract, I will do that free of charge. Because I don't want a fellow human to go through what I had to go through, right?
Yeah.
I know what to spot in these contracts now. I've looked at hundreds of them, right? And I want to make sure you're protected.
Okay, that's a good one. And you'll do that for free. I like that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, if you're somebody, I can't afford a day of coordinator. This is a luxury that I just can't afford. Can I have help? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I will be there for you. Because I didn't know. So I did all the research. And I feel like if that's something I can share in this industry to help others, I absolutely will.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're trying to get to, that horror story, is basically just things went wrong. And we'll kind of leave it at that. All right?
Yes.
It didn't go well.
Absolutely. But yeah. Make sure.
Now listen, now you mentioned to me drunk DJs. Like,
yes, drunk DJs.
That I'm sorry blows me away, because the fact that any DJ is drinking while they are DJing a wedding, I'm a little bit mind blown on that. But you said you've encountered a few. I've
encountered a few because, you know, it's Uncle So-and-so's best friend from his frat, you know, or whatever. We always
Not
talk,
good.
Not good. You know, we talk about frienders in the industry, you know, just because your friend can do it, can they do it well?
Yeah.
You know, a DJ is not there just doing start and stop on a playlist.
Nope.
They're doing so much more than that.
Absolutely. The very thing I explained to couples, like, yeah, could you plug in and play off Spotify? Yeah, but I'll let you know how it's going to go. And it starts with a D, disaster.
Don't forget, when they don't buy Spotify Premium, the ads.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you got to have premium, and otherwise you get the ads. Good point right there. So can you share once again how people can find you through website, Instagram, and anything else?
Absolutely. So my website is Planned by Katie, all lowercase, plannedbykatie.com. So is my Instagram. You can find me there. Okay,
and then lastly, you mentioned the part about building community and relationships. You're also trying to venture into, and which you've already done, where you're setting up kind of like mini bridal expos. Mm-hmm. And you and I kind of talked about this a little bit. I think this is a great idea to build community. I prefer the smaller ones. I'm actually doing a wedding next week. That was that very thing. They invited me to come out, be the DJ, small little place up in Apple Hill. Boom, I got a wedding out of it. And it was because there wasn't a lot of people, so I could have good interactions. It seems like that's the vibe you're trying to create with vendors and, like you said, different venues.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Making that partnership with the venue is huge. When I do this, I try to go for smaller venues. Mm-hmm. Because they have that more mom and pop feel.
Yeah.
And also work with vendors I wouldn't typically work with.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Out of town, just different styles, things like that. Doing these like bridal expos or styled shoots. Styled shoots really let us get creative and do fun things that we haven't seen in the industry yet, kind of predicting the trends for the next season.
I love it. I love it. Well, Katie, couldn't say it more. I'm just very proud of you, very excited that you're in this space, that I got to be your DJ. That was quite an honor and such a special day. And it's good to see you flourishing and just your knowledge in such a short amount of time of the industry, which means you're only going to continue to grow, only going to continue to better. And like I said, I can't wait until we do that first wedding together.
I'm so excited. You know, we got to see each other last weekend, which was really fun. But it wasn't a wedding event. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, there she is, everybody. Katie Deterding of Plan by KD. That's right. We gave you all the information. Be sure to check her out. That will put episode 6 in the books. And of course, the next time we do it, it'll be another vendor. And of course, what will we be talking about? Weddings. We absolutely love them. My name is Steve Buzzard. Till next time, we'll see you then.
Thank you so much for listening to today's Let's Talk Weddings podcast episode. Be sure to join Steve next time when he talks to another outstanding vendor in the wedding industry. The Let's Talk Weddings podcast can be found on all podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Let's Talk Weddings is also featured on YouTube under Experience the Buzz. For more information about Steve Buzzard and his work, head to buzzardball.com or follow Steve on Instagram at BuzzardBallExperience.